So to get started for this material, we're gonna go ahead and press Shift A. We're gonna add a mesh and plane. I'm just gonna take this and press S and hit 4 to scale it up a bit. Then I'm gonna, with this selected, I'm gonna press Shift D. Then I'll press R, Y, and rotate it 90 degrees on the Y axis. And then I will move it up just so that it is above our floor, like so. Then I'll hit Shift A, add a camera to the scene right here, press Control 0. That brings us to camera view and sets us to the active camera. Then with the plane selected, the vertical one, I'll press 3 or 1, depending on what side you are, to go into orthographic view. And then I will press Control Alt and 0 to position my camera facing our plane. This is just to get a nice view of our mesh here and a good angle for the glass. Then I'm going to hit Shift A, add a light. We're gonna add a sun. Then I'm going to take this guy. I'm just gonna bring him up here so we can see. I'm gonna switch the strength to a 25. I'm gonna rotate him so that he is pointing pretty horizontally towards our plane here. And it doesn't matter where you put the sun, whether you put it in front or behind here, you can just leave it in the center because it's just sort of a global lighting thing. Then we're gonna take the color on this. We're gonna move it towards a sort of a goldish orange like that. Not a whole bunch. If you want the exact hex value, it's right here on your screen. It's FFCDB3. Again, that is FFCDB3. That's just the color I'm gonna be using. It doesn't have to be precise. Now that we have that set up, if we go to rendered preview, I'm currently in Eevee, and it's looking quite bright here. So we've got an afternoon sun shining on our white material here. And obviously, if you think the sun's a little bit too bright, you can always switch the strength down to a 10 or 5 or whatever you want to do. I'm going to be using a 25 for now, just because, yeah. Anyways, when you do that, if we go into camera view, we can see that we have a nice view of our white here. And if you're wondering why it's so bright on the sides, that's just because I have bloom on, and that's how Eevee is rendering it out. And so, yeah, we can up the intensity, obviously, lower the intensity. If we go to cycles, you can see what it's looking like in cycles. In cycles, the bloom isn't nearly so much. And so, yeah, obviously Eevee messes some things up with when it tries to fake things. But yeah, we'll just be making a material in Eevee and then switching to cycles at the end, just because Eevee does run faster, even though it's sort of not looking quite accurate right now. But yeah, anyways, let's get started. So we'll head over to the shading workspace, go to our camera view and our 3D viewport. You can set your scene up however you want. This is just how I'll be doing it. Then we're going to go to the rendered preview, make sure we have scene world unchecked and have it on this forced built-in HDR right here with the strength at a 1, and we'll be good to go. Then go over here and press new and type in rainbow stained glass like this. And then to start out, we're going to be adding a Voronoi texture in here. Like this. So then with this selected, we'll press Control T. Then we'll take this object here and move it into the vector. And now that we've done that, we are simply just going to hit Shift A, add ourselves a color ramp like this. Then on this color ramp, we're going to add 2 more stops. Then we're going to be switching them to pure whites like this. Then we're going to go over here and change from linear to constant. Then for the positions on these guys, I'm going to move this white to a 0.25, the other white to a 0.5, and the final white to a 0.75. And there's a reason I'm doing this and why I have multiple whites here, and it's because we're going to be doing some fun things with the colors on these. So then I'm going to take this color from the Voronoi texture and move it into the color ramp. So basically what that is doing is, if I Control Shift and left click, I'll go ahead and pan around, is we now have our stained glass fragments. So with this selected, if we hit N to open up the side panel here, we can see that the scale is not set to a 1, and that is because we did not apply the rotation or the scale. So then we can just press Control A and apply the rotation and the scale, and we get our sized panels of glass. And obviously, depending on how big your window is, you can change that simply with the scale right here, or you can change that to a 1, to a 5, but we're gonna be leaving it at a 5. And at the end, if you want to change the scale, I'd actually recommend doing it through this channel and just changing all of these at once to like a 5, or you can change it to a 0.1 to make them even smaller, etc. Anyways, with this selected, I'm going to press Control Shift D and move it directly under. Then I'm going to press Shift R 2 times, like this. And this is how many colors we're going to have. We're going to have 4 colors. Now that we are in here, we're going to be switching first black to a white and then the second one to a black. And then we're just going to repeat the process of switching the previous one to a white, and so that eventually we'll have sort of a pattern here going. We have the first one is a black, the second one's black, the third one's black, and then this one, the last one's going to be a black. And this is just going to be creating our mask for the colors that we're making, like so. So if we preview the first one, this is what we're doing now. If we preview the second, we have these panes, the third we have these panes, and the fourth we have these panes, and none of the panes are overlapping, and that is exactly what we want. So the next step is simply decide the colors we're going to be using. For this tutorial, we're going to be using some blues. Obviously, you can change these colors as you want, and you can also make more color ramp masks if you want to be using like 10 different colors, and just make sure you space them out accordingly and use the constant value here. You can literally make as many colors on this as you want. Then you can press Shift A, search up a mix node in front of all these. We're going to take the color from here and put it into the factor. Then we're going to take the bottom color, turn it to a black, Control Shift left click to preview. Then this top color, the hex value on this guy, we're going to be moving it to a light blue, and the value is going to be a 00A3BC. Again, that is a 00A3BC, like this, gives us a nice light blue. Then I'm going to select this guy, hit Shift D, move him down here, take the color from this color ramp into the factor, Then with this color, we're going to be changing the hex value to a sort of a greenish blue, and the hex value is going to be a 00BC61. Again, that is a 00BC61 right here, and we Control Shift left click to preview. Now we have our green panels, we have our blue panels, etc. Then I'm just going to take both of these guys and hit Shift D, move them down here, take the color from each of their color ramps and put it into their factor. Then on the color for the third one, we're going to be switching that to a sort of darker blue, sort of leaning towards purple. The hex value will be a 2B00BC. Again, that is a 2B00BC, like this. Control Shift left click to preview, and we have these panes, like so. Then on this last one, this one's going to be more of a yellowish green, and the hex value will be a 7FBC00. Again, that is a 7FBC00, and we have our yellowish green here. Now all we have to do is mix these together, and to do that, I will be hitting Shift A, search for another mix node, then leaving it on mix. Don't check clamp. You can check clamp if you're using filament colors, but yeah, we'll just go ahead and check clamp on all these just in case, just for no reason. It just helps with some slight things if you're using a certain color mode. Anyways, take the color from the color one from the previous mix nodes and just mix it like this, and that gives us this effect here. Then if I select this mix node, Shift D, move it down, take this color into color 1 and this one into color 2, Control Shift left click, and we have that. So then we just combine these together. I'm going to be grabbing this and moving it a little bit farther away to give us some more space. Select this mix node, Shift D, move it up here, take the color from this one into color 1, the color from this into color 2, Control Shift and left click here, and look at that, we have our color, nothing's overlapping, and everything is mixing properly, and it's all fine and dandy. Make sure you leave these factors on 0.5. Then the next step is simply going to be pressing Shift A here and adding another mix node, because we're not quite done with the color yet, because if you notice on glass panes or stained glass panes, there's these little black lines in between the panes, and so we don't have that yet, and so that's what we're going to be making now. We're just going to take this color and move it to a black, then take the color from this mix node and move it into color 2, and then the factor for this, we're going to be hitting Shift A and adding another Voronoi texture like this. Then I'm going to take the vector here, plug it into this vector, leave the scale on a 5. If we Control Shift left click to preview the distance, we have this, and this is not exactly what we want. All you have to do is switch it from Euclidean to, from F1 actually, to distance to edge. And then we're going to make this more contrasty by adding a color ramp like this. Then we're going to take this white and position it at a 0.025, like so. And if we zoom in here, we can see that we have some really nice black lines in between. Obviously there is some blurring on these lines, and so we need to switch this from linear to constant, and now the lines are much more defined. And you can play with this white however you want. Like you can see on some parts, because it is random, you have things like this happening, and to change that you can sort of take this position here and make it even closer, like a 0.01, and that will make all of the lines smaller, but you'll still have those parts. And it's like where they repaired the glass, or the pane sort of started fading away. It's fine. It factors into everything properly anyways. Then we just simply take this color and move it into the factor of the last mix node in the lineup. Control Shift and left click here, and now we have our color. So obviously if you wanted to make this black not a pure black, you can change this a little bit to like a gray, white even. You can change this to whatever the color you want. You can put a noise texture in there and have it be mixed colors or whatever, but we're not going to be doing that here. We're just going to be leaving it a pure black and keeping it simple, because this is already a little bit complicated here. Anyways, the next thing is going to be to add the bump. To do that, we're going to press Shift A, search for a noise texture like this. We're going to take the vector from the mapping node into the vector of the noise texture. And if we Control Shift left click to preview here, we can see what's going on. We don't want this bump to be so splotchy. We sort of want it to be super light. So we're going to be switching the scale to a 20, the detail to a 16, the roughness all the way to a 1, and the distortion to a 2. Then Shift A, search for a color ramp, put the factor of the noise texture into this color ramp, and this is just going to be so we can adjust height values if we need to once we've factored in the bump. So we'll hit Shift A, search for the bump node like this. We're going to take the color from this color ramp, and if we plug it into the height of the bump node, we get this. And this bump is going over everywhere, including the black lines in between the panes, the stuff that holds it together, and we don't want that. So we'll be hitting Shift A, search for a mix node here, right here. We're going to put this color into color 2 from the color ramp, like this. And then the color 1 is going to be a black. And the factor for this mix node is going to come from the Voronoi texture that factors in the distance to edge. So take it from the color ramp and plug the factor into the mix node. Control Shift left click the mix node, and you can see here we have the noise showing up where the glass is. So now we can plug the mix node into the height. Control Shift left click to preview. And this is a bit too strong for glass, so we're going to be switching the strength to a 0.1. That might even be a little bit strong for you. I'm going to be leaving it at a 0.1, but you can go even lower than this. Don't be afraid. You can do like a 0.05, 0.025, depending on how smooth you want the glass to be. I'm going to be using a 0.1. Then to take this normal and plug it into the normal of the principal BSDF. Then Control Shift left click this guy. This is our color, remember? We're going to take this color and just plug it into the base color of the principal shader. And if we Control Shift and left click the shader, we get a preview of what is going on. Obviously, this is starting to look like we want it to, but we need transmission to be occurring. We need the index of refraction. And to do that, we're simply going to input these values that I'm going to give you right now. So metallic, I'm going to go ahead and tell you to make this a 1. And then the roughness, we're going to leave at we're going to move to a 0.2. Like this. And then the index of refraction is going to be a 1.5. The transmission is going to be a 1. And the transmission roughness is also going to be a 1. So basically, if we go back to our camera view, this is what it looks like head on. And we can sort of see what is happening. This is an Eevee, by the way, so it's not going to be quite accurate. But you saw the animation at the beginning, and I'll go ahead and play it again for you right now. And what it looks like from all the angles in cycles. And so yeah, that is what our stained glass is looking like as its final product. In Eevee, if you wanted to make it transparent, because currently it's not quite transparent, something you can do is go over here to the material settings. I'm just going to go ahead and make this panel a little bit larger, like this. And then you can go over here to blend mode, and you can mess with these settings. You can go between alpha blend, alpha hashed, things like that on the blend mode instead of doing opaque. And then it starts to look more transparent and things like that. You can mess with backface culling if you want. I don't necessarily recommend that, but yeah, you can go alpha blend there. This is what it looks like with alpha hashed when it loads. There we go. This is alpha hashed. And obviously this is slow samples in Eevee in the viewport, so it's not going to be super high quality. But yeah. Anyways, that is how you make the material, and you can be adding multiple more colors. Like I said earlier, it's super diverse how you can be able to add different colors and change the colors so dynamically. But yeah, anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial and will be able to use this material in your renders with your stained glass. So with that said, I will see you in the next one.